Hey, this is Songbird, and today I'm going to show you how my Fancy Feast cat food stove works. Okay, so I took a Fancy Feast cat food can, pop the top, wash it off, take off the sticker, and that's your base. And I used the drill and made some holes in it. See the original versus the new one. And I don't know exactly how many holes I made. I just kind of went around it as evenly as I could, freehanding it. And you see it's not perfect, and it works. It doesn't matter. So I'm gonna show you how it works. All right, so alcohol stoves, as they're called, can burn a variety of things. Anything from acetone to rubbing alcohol to isopropyl 91%, which is stronger than rubbing alcohol. Anything that's flammable and has a lot of gas coming off of it will probably work. But more commonly, like on the Appalachian Trail, people will burn denatured alcohol or even Everclear, so they can drink a little bit of it too. Just high proof alcohol content is very good. All right, so we got the stove, and I'm gonna put a predetermined amount of alcohol in there. I do like 1.5 or 2 capfuls. We're just gonna do 2 capfuls because it's easy right now. And basically what happens is alcohol is extremely flammable at these concentrations, and you light the gases coming off of the alcohol as it evaporates. And these are refilled water bottles. I'm gonna put about as much in as I would use for cooking. Like that. So the gases are lit on fire, and I mean the liquid itself doesn't burn. I don't think so. What it is the fumes are flammable, like gasoline fumes are very flammable. Same thing. So you light the fumes, and it burns through the center hole. I like to capture this burn because I mean I need to cook anyway, right? So as it heats up, the flame will begin to come out the jets, which are the holes on the side. Move this back a little bit. Yeah. So you'll see that the flame grows in intensity as it gets hotter, because my understanding is the gas is in greater amounts. Boom, there you go. So the hotter it gets, the better it works. It's called priming. So it takes a second to get it heated, and once it's heated, the stove will really take off. There's more alcohol evaporating, hitting its boiling point. Not evaporating, hitting its boiling point. And once that happens, it just continues to get hotter until it'll shoot out the jets. So you see it burn there, and it'll burn out the sides when the top is covered. So you don't need to do anything really crazy to get the stove to work. You just need to have big enough holes on the side that the jets work, that the holes work as jets. So play around with it a little bit and, you know, experiment. And you can get some pretty good results pretty simply. And it's pretty cheap too. Now, with an alcohol stove and Esbit tablets, anything that's not a canister stove that's burning from a big fuel source and very intensely, you're gonna really want to focus on using all the heat that's produced by these relatively weak flames. So a shroud to go around, like tin foil, aluminum foil, a titanium foil windscreen, which I have. Put that around, and more of the heat that's produced by the flames is going into the pot, going into the water, or whatever the contents are. Also, Another way that you can decrease heat loss or waste is to have a tray underneath that reflects more of the heat that was going down into the ground up into the pot and into your system. This is also good for leave no trace. You do not want to sterilize the soil underneath where you're cooking. And I'm probably going to utilize some kind of base just for the sheer fact that it makes everything sturdier. Soft, loamy soil, something that's pretty wide for an alcohol stove, isn't going to be as stable. So that's the second thing, is the floor reflector shooting any heat that escapes down back up. And you'll still have some waste, but a lot less. Another thing you got to do, the most important thing, as I've got right here, is put the lid on your pot if you have a lid. If you don't have a lid, you can make one. It's super easy. You can find tutorials. I mean, basically, it's just a piece of foil that covers the top. I mean, that will also increase the amount of heat that stays in the pot and gets into the water when you're trying to heat it up. All right, so you can hear it, I'm sure. We're starting to boil. It's pretty quick. I think especially with capturing the heat from the initial priming, where it's kind of burning in the middle and the fuel isn't hot enough to really escape from the jets when you put the lid on when you put the pot on as a lid. I think capturing that initial burst of heat is really good to do. It's kind of a little bit of a pain. It's nice because I'm sitting at a table, which I won't be doing when I'm out on the trail. But you know, just holding your pot over it until it warms up. I think it makes it warm up faster too, because you're trapping more of the heat. Just the same thing as keeping your system contained to keep more heat going into the water, going into your pot, going into its contents. Same thing goes for heating up the alcohol more quickly, so that there's more vapor, more boiling going on, boiling points reached, and better ignition. So we've got steam, and usually that's about when I pull the lid off and add my contents of my food package and stir it up. Now this will burn out, and I'm going to go into a few limitations with cooking with alcohol. Alright, so like I just said, this will burn out. You don't have a relatively limitless supply of fuel attached to your stove. I mean, you either have to refill it and get it, and it will prime much more quickly, or it will already be primed from the heat. But you'll have to either add more fuel, or you'll have to deal with not having any more flame. So if you're able to add your food contents, stir it up, put the lid back on, and maybe the instructions don't say, boil for, they say simmer. Well, it's pretty hard to simmer with this type of stove. You can make a simmer ring for different types of stoves, so that you reduce the amount of flame that's coming out, kind of like an adjustment with a little tab so the holes get smaller. But these are about as small of holes as I can use without the jets failing to function. So I don't really cook like that. You'll see the stove is going out now. I'll kind of put it in there and mix it up, and then close it up again. And once the flame goes out, I will remove the pot from heat, or from the stove now that it's out, or when it does go out, it's still going, and then just let it sit closed up, and that'll provide enough heat over a few minutes to continue cooking the food. But that is a limitation. Simmering can be difficult. At least with this stove, there's simmer rings available on commercially made products, and DIY as well if you want to get into all that. Also, there's soot that's produced. You can see the side of the pot is dark. This is isopropyl alcohol, which has some water in it, and my understanding is that lower burn temperature means that it's a less clean burn. Other fuel sources will burn hotter, like denatured alcohol, and will provide a cleaner burn with less residue on the pot. But for me, so far, it seems to be not as bad as putting it in a fire like in a fire pit, but pretty bad. So it just went out. So one nice thing about this, I'm not gonna bring a full bottle of this. I've been testing this all night and I've only used like a fifth of the bottle, maybe a little less. And my thinking is that it'll be really nice to be able to see how much fuel I have left. So I cook 3 nights in a row. I've got 2 more nights to get into town on like a 5-6 day section, whatever. And I can see that I have maybe 3 dinners worth or 3 cooked meals worth of alcohol left, and I can keep that in mind. Maybe I do all my cooking at once. I cook a little bit more food at once instead of doing separate burns. So, so that's a little bit about the stove I made, kind of how it works, and some of the drawbacks and some of the things I like about it. It's really cheap, it's really light, and it's pretty darn easy. So I guess those are the main things that are good about it. All right, thank you.